and we'll start rolling in. Let's see, let me get my share screen, and we'll start rolling in. Let's see, boop, there it is. All right, screen one, go live. Dope. Cool. You guys should see my screen now. If you, hopefully you can. Let's see, what is this chat saying? Yeah, a cup of hot chocolate's good. Cool. All right. So, week 3. So we're gonna be doing lighting and stuff today. Actually, let me pull up the model. I kind of want to show you what I got up to this past week. Boom. Where's this at? It might be in like a weird, like flattened out state right now. I didn't prepare this model for viewing. I had the saved out file here, but oh no, we're good. Cool. These are my perspective cubes. All right, so this is what I was up to. Let's let this load real quick. Hold up. It takes a second. He's slow. All right, so I'll take off the walls. Boom. Let's do outside walls. Inside walls are good. And then I'll turn off ceiling. And then that's good. Okay, cool. So we have a 3D model, right? So what I did this past week, from I don't know if you guys remember what it was, but I just had the robot, and he was kind of, his body was mostly designed out, and then I just took that understanding and I kind of pushed it a little bit further, right? What I want you to pay attention to is, obviously I turned off a couple layers. It's just the walls and stuff, so there's no like set dressing that's missing from the side here. I just didn't care about it. And the reason for that, right? And this is something that everybody should know. When you're designing for a game, when you're designing for animation or whatever, right? All you have to design is what we're gonna see, right? So I set up my camera pretty early, right? I had it in the general area. I even told you guys last week, like kind of where I kind of wanted it, but then I locked it down and then I kept building further. And what happened is, because when I go to my camera view, right, all I see is over here. So technically speaking, I don't really need to design everything on the back side over here. This happens in animation all the time, right? This is something that, we really don't focus on anything that's not present, right? If we design the interior of a building and we never see the exterior, we'll never do that, right? We'll never design the outside. If we don't see some of the rooms in the back, we won't design that. Well, if you see like little bits here and there, we'll kind of like make that happen. We'll kind of show some bits, and I'll show you what I did in a second. But overall, right, it's just like, as long as you have what you need for the project, that's what's most important, right? And so with that in mind, right, this is kind of where for students and people of that caliber, right, you want to think about what is most important for you, right? Because what happens is, when you get into building 3D, it can be you can dive into this rabbit hole of constantly going like deeper and deeper into details, and ultimately just waste all your time doing these things. Because right now it's like, okay, cool, I got my guy, and then I have like the counter and the chairs, and it makes sense. And you zoom in, you're like, oh, that thing needs screws. I need to put screws on this thing. And then you dive deeper, and then, oh, that screw needs threads. And it's like, it becomes this whole different thing. And in reality, when you look at the thing, you see like 1% of it. You know what I mean? And that's one of the big issues that we run into pretty often with 3D. So lock in your camera early and understand what you need to see, right? Because in a portfolio, this isn't a production piece, right? This isn't something that is going to be turned into an actual game where people are going to be running around interacting with things. This is just a portfolio piece to show your skill. And so if you have a 3/4 view of a full room, right, show what you need to show. Everything else can just kind of be whatever, because you're never going to show it. You know what I mean? Especially in an animation portfolio where we only really see this one angle, maybe 1 or 2 angles, and just design for those. For this live stream, right, this project that I'm doing right now, we're really just doing the one angle because we only have time for this. And so I don't really want to waste too much time designing everything that's going to be happening on these other like side shelves, what's going to be happening behind them, right? I have an understanding of what's going to be there, but I don't focus my time there, you know? And so what we did here was I just kind of built out my front counter area a little bit, you know, designed some of this back stuff a little bit. And then I had that window back there and I wanted to show like more stuff, you know, like I just want to show that there's more of a kitchen happening so you can kind of like see other things, right? So what I did was, instead of spending my time modeling that, I just duplicated the whole thing and just moved it around. This is the arm piece, right? Those pieces right there is the arm piece that's like right there. And then, well, technically speaking, it's the soy sauce bottle, but the soy sauce bottle is derived from the arm. So I took the arm, turned it into that, took those, and then like just shaped them up and like scaled them up, right? Because once you look in camera, it's really hard to tell what they are. They just look like big containers, big tanks, big, you know, machines in the back, you know, like dishwashing stuff or stoves, ovens, whatever, right? And I'll design it to make it look better. But at the end of the day, right, I just needed information because when you look at this in camera, it looks fine, right? There's nothing wrong with it, you know? I'm gonna go, I'll turn on all my stuff again. Hold up. Boom, there you go. And so we have a basic understanding of what our interior is going to look like, right? I rendered this out. I did it in layers to where I could easily separate and paint behind things. Right now, the chairs, the counter, and then the robots. These front three robots are all together. And then that back wall is just one single back wall because I don't really need much past that. And I can cut that out if I need it, right? And so this is what I have so far. We're going to get into lighting and mood today just to kind of push this into a more of a painting aspect. So we're getting out of 3D, going into Photoshop at this point. For those of you that are like following along, right? Maybe you're not doing the assignment, but like, you know, just in general, right? Just people watching. Take this step as far as you need, right? A lot of people need that extra I guess 3D application, right? Where it's like, you know, I need to assign materials, I need to assign colors and various things like that. I want to make this about a demo to where I can show you how to go around that, right? But for those of you following along and you have your own process and you have your own understandings, just do that, right? It's always a big question as to like, you know, how far do I take my 3D, or, you know, when do I stop and this and that. You take it as far as you want, right? And just pay attention to how far you take things, because the next time you do a painting, right? The next time you go about doing, you know, any kind of projects, right? Just remember how much of it you actually needed, right? Because sometimes, you know, I'll do something like this and I'm like, oh, let me apply some materials. Great. That wood texture would be a little bit easier if I you know, apply that material. So then you have to like UV something, you have to fix some things because your modeling sucks or whatever. And then you apply a wood texture and then you render it out, right? And then you find out the wood texture looks all skewed and it kind of does that 3D kind of distortion thing, right? It's like, it's not that great. It took like 30-45 minutes to apply, figure out, or whatever, right? And then you have to redo it anyway. And so that's kind of where, for me, in my mind, I'm like, well, I just need to make it look brown, right? I don't really need a wood texture applied. I just need to add the brown color to it. That way it's like kind of halfway there. And so when you're deciding how far to take your 3D versus how much you want to paint, that's up to you, right? Find out what's useful for you, find out what you like, as well as the style that you want to paint in. If you're doing something more photoreal, something that is more heavily 3D and kind of more rendered out, right? Yeah, maybe taking the 3D a bit further is probably your ideal, right? For me, I don't really like going that far just because I don't really like painting that way. You know, I'm able to, but I don't really like doing it like that. And so I don't, right? And so what I want to make this demo about, right, is how do we take base models and then convert it into colored paintings in a very, very easy and repeatable way, right? Trying to pull the artistry out of, not the artistry, but pull out the skill bar that you need to hit to be able to paint something like this, right? Because painting a 3D model like this is intense, right? Because there's so much stuff, there's so much to think about, and it can be very overwhelming, right? And so right now I have it's kind of hard to see because the background render is the full thing, but I'll just kind of show you. So this is the flat layer, right? This is what I have for just the base card. And really what we're doing here, we have these back walls, the NORAN, the shelves, the hole in the wall in the back, the light, all that stuff. And then whatever's like behind this thing. Actually, I have the assets right here. It looks like this, right? It's I've already like merged it down to where like I have what I needed. But this is the background piece. And then I have the bar, right, on its own separate layer. Very cut out and easy to manage. And then I have the chairs in front of that separately as well, right? And what that's doing is it's just allowing me a little bit more freedom. I didn't want to cut out every single thing and make it so I have to like piece it all together. I wanted to keep it pretty chill just because I want to show you how easy it is to take something like this to completion without having to worry too much about it, right? So let's get to it. I made a grid, right? So for those that like, this was based off of a hexagon, not the grid, the environment, right? If you remember when I started with that hexagon shape. I cut it in half, did the things, right? And so the perspective would be kind of hard. I have the horizontals here, right? That's the blue line, right? And that's fine because that just follows what's going on here. But there's the depth cue, right? The red lines going here. I don't know why I'm not drawing. The lines going back in space like that, there is no lines that do that, right? Because this is kind of slanting that way because of the hexagon idea, right? Same here, the robots are organic and they're like tilted anyway. The chairs are kind of like skewed that way as well. They don't go perfectly straight back. And so there's really nothing here other than maybe like a little bit of that screen, but that's not really enough to base a grid off of, right? And it becomes kind of hard. It can be very difficult to get whatever perspective things are on because you don't want to do it based off of the lines that we're seeing here, right? Because that's not a square. And so little things that you can do, right? And it's once you see it, it's so basic, but it's just like you don't remember sometimes about these very simple things, right? All I just rendered it with 3 cubes in the scene just to show me where the 90-degree angle is, right? And I just built the grid off of that. So if you're ever having trouble like designing scenes that are like maybe a little organic or whatever, and you still need that grid, because I can just put a hexagon on this grid and I'll have the perspective of whatever's happening in the scene. Just remember, just put a square in there, just render it out, make the grid and call it a day, right? It's super simple, really not that crazy of an idea, but you know, some of the simpler things kind of get lost sometimes, right? So cool. Next thing I want to talk about is this reference. Boom. So I just like usual, right? This is obviously I talk about lighting and things all the time in basically every month, every topic. It's at some point lighting's involved, right? And so I'm not going to talk about the fundamentals of lighting too much, but I do want to show you some differences between like interiors and exteriors, right? Or interiors / nighttime scenes, and then exterior scenes, right? Exterior like daytime-esque scenes, right? And so the first thing I'm gonna do, right? I just gathered some reference in like ways that I could possibly light. I'm actually leaning towards this one. I like that kind of like gold yellowy kind of tone that's happening, and then the separation between the two sides. What I really like is it just creates a dynamic that's kind of really nice for me. I was looking at this too, but I didn't quite like going with this. I did like how green that was though. Maybe I'll change that kind of yellowish to green. But I'm just trying to get inspiration for various color palettes that could be happening, right? And this is obviously, these are bars. This is, I think it's from Atlanta. This is from something else, and then it's from something else. But the whole idea being, I'm looking for just how they apply things, how they kind of light things, what do they do to make things happen, right? And so with that in mind, let's look at this. Okay, so we have a interior scene with some lights, right? And it's not like dark. I mean, I need to brighten it up, but it's not like super dark. And you know, there's some things happening here, right? None of these lights are gonna be final, right? They can stay the same. I might leave them the way they are, but overall, they don't have to be this way, right? And what I want to talk about is the kind of core differences that you want to understand about interior lighting versus exterior lighting, right? If you don't learn anything this month, right, from all these videos, remember this one concept. So when you're designing exterior scenes, right, there's always like a sun involved, right? There's, you know, the sky, or there's a main light source. Usually, you know, we decide with the sun. So what happens is, let's say this is like a roof and this is like the outside, right? Up here, you know, assuming there's no ceiling on this place, right? What you would get is kind of shafts of light that go like this, right? And then you just follow that along if that needs something like that. And then you just kind of create that cast shadow. And this would get some sort of cast shadow like that. And then you just kind of do the logic of the space, right? Light would hit this thing here, and then you just kind of work through that, right? That's the idea. And so when we first start, daylight scenes tend to be one of the easier things for us to wrap our minds around, right? Just because there's a logic to it, right? You just get the sun, follow the direction. Generally speaking, you're pretty close, right? But interior scenes end up being super hard because you're like, well, where's the light coming from? You know, what do I do with any of this? There's no consistent thing, right? And so what you want to understand about working with interiors is that it's up to you, right? When you want to put something somewhere, just do it, right? You have the ultimate level of freedom. This is why, like, I really enjoy painting nighttime scenes and interior scenes, because when I need a light source, and I'll show you why I designed these light sources to be the way they are, but I have a character here. I have somebody, you know, doing something, right? He's making our sushi or whatever, right? And he's gonna plop it down right there, right? And so I have an idea of the main focus. And what I want is to look at this guy, right? I just want to say, hey, this is my main focus. I need to look at this character somehow. And so all I have to do is pop off his silhouette, whether that's dark on light or light on dark, right? Dark on light or light on dark, right? Same thing. It doesn't really matter where you do it or how you do it. All that matters is whatever's behind him or her or it, right, is brighter or darker, and then you just make them pop off, right? And so let's say, for example, I have this kind of this kitchen scene back here, right? You're like, oh, I don't really like that light back there. Instead, maybe what I want to do, oops, I'm still in a new layer, so I have to like Control Z out of that, because I do like where that's at. You know, what if I just want to put like something right here? Maybe there's a door back there, right? And you see how much more that pops off. I have a solution for that in my mind already, but that's one of the possible solutions that you can do, right? Any chance you get. What if I just put a light right here? Like there's this guy back here. He's not popping off maybe as much as I want. What if there's like a screen right here? Just like a tablet or something, right? Just to kind of give us some an idea, right? What if there's a light on this back wall back here somewhere, somehow, right? Maybe it's a window or some sort of light. And I'm creating these opportunities to show off our characters, right? If I want to kind of put emphasis on his hands, I'll put something light back there. It doesn't have to be a light source. It just has to be a lighter value. And this is what I want you to think about, right? When you're designing, you design based off of the read, right? So looking back at these, right? Looking back at these photos or these movie stills, right? You have these light sources. They're just kind of everywhere. That light source being right there behind this chick's head, right? Chances are they placed that there, right? You know, like, I mean, maybe they didn't move the light, but they angled the camera to kind of fit a certain way. You know, the Matthew McConaughey character, he's sitting against this wider part of the door for a reason, right? On top of the lights being certain areas. So his face silhouette pops out, her head pops off, her head pops off. All of these head pops off, right? There's a light source. There's a purple one right there behind these people. That's placed there. And they just did that, right? And this is what you want to think about. How do we make it so we can design our scene for our key focal points to pop off the canvas, right? Same here. They placed them in this spot you know, they could have put his head maybe a little bit higher, like the camera a little bit lower or whatever. But this is a really good spot to help design his silhouette, right? You know, same thing in this. You have these moments where like there's a light back here, right? There's that whatever's back there. I think it's like a light value something. I don't think that's an actual light source or like a hallway shape. I think that's like a light value something. It's like behind his head and behind her head, right? And it creates this highlighting effect, right? And it's very subtle, but they do this to help pop things off. And I'm 1000% sure this this jukebox right here, right? There's a light coming off the bottom here. It's to help her pop off of him, right? When they design these scenes, they just put lights where they need it, right? They'll add dominance where there's like this, for example, in this scene right here, the lights coming off the bar are a lot brighter than everything else. And so now we have a dominant light source in the scene. And then we have a bunch of secondary lights to kind of help pop that off, right? In here, right, it's the yellowish light. It's the more dominant scene. There's still blues. There's still other things happening. But there is a more dominant color, right? More dominant light happening. You know, there's also the more dominant light. Even like these signs are like they're all coming from the same general direction, right? But the understanding is they do this to help design their shapes, right? And this is why I like doing interiors and doing nighttime scenes so much, because there's just more freedom, right? You want to put a window somewhere, you put the window somewhere, right? You want to add something somewhere, you can just do that. And like these lights, whenever I designed it, right, I have a couple different ideas happening, right? I purposely put this here, right? Obviously there's the shape of the bar is already doing that, right? Like the shape is just that shape up there, right? But I could have not, because it wasn't there earlier, right? But I was like, oh, that'd be really nice to kind of create this shape here, right? Same with the shelving here. I could have left that a blank wall, but what I wanted to do was create lines that lead to our guy, right? And so now we have strong compositional elements. We have lights that do all these things. And the way I bent, like if you, looking back, did I leave the model open? Maybe I didn't. No, I didn't. This, you know, remember how it was tilted, right? For those that saw the beginning, you can kind of see it rotated in a weird angle compared to the way the bar is. Whenever I just duplicate all this and sent it back there, right? And so the reason I did that was because I'm looking for this line right there. Because before it was actually pushing us that way. Before it was like the real way it was supposed to be facing. It wasn't doing that. And so I was like, well, I don't really need it to be, you know, an exact mirror. To be honest, I don't even want it to be an exact mirror. I just want it to feel like maybe that's a back wall right there. But now I have this really cool shape, and it doesn't have, it could go up, right? It can go around like that. It could just be like the wall ending right there. Who knows, right? But the whole point being is I just designed the shape to push us that way. I had this light framing the top of his head. I have this light here casting light down, which in turn creates a light side on his back, right? On his back, and then a dark side for the arm in front of it, right? So I'm gonna kind of push that value a bit. And so I'm thinking about all these graphic design shapes just to kind of help me get a clearer image in what is, you know, it can become a pretty busy image, right? Just because you have so much detail and so much emphasis on, like, you know, I guess some of these like joints and all these like mechanical pieces, it can kind of be a little bit overwhelming, especially because of how empty the outside room is. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, main idea, right? The freedom comes from the ability to just design the graphic light the way you need it, right? Don't follow the logic of the sun when it comes to lights in a room. You just want to kind of do a bunch of source lights and then pick one that's dominant and use the rest to kind of help guide the eye, right? We're going to do a couple more things just to kind of help this work out just a little bit nicer. But for now, right, this is a good start, and then we're going to kind of increase it from here, right? And just as a heads up, I'm going to be moving into color this week as well. We're going to kind of address the kind of mood and tone at the same time, just because you've seen me do that. You've seen me do that for other things, and I have the keyframe already where I kind of want the where I'm getting the color reference from. So just kind of understand that. I'll show you how I go about it in a bit, but you know, just kind of know that I'm not doing this in value. It's just starting in value, right? Cool. All right. So with that in mind, what we're going to be doing now is taking this and improving the mood and tone, and then getting the lighting a little more situated to where I want it. What I would highly recommend against doing, right? Try not to go into this and just paint individual things and try to eventually build it up, right? What I would recommend is try to get an entire room feeling correct first, right? On the first zoom out, where we're like, when you're looking at it like kind of this far away, it should kind of feel like the thumbnails that we kind of grabbed from before, right? So these thumbnails right here, we kind of want it to feel roughly like one of these. I'm going to go for this one right here just because I like that color palette just a little bit better. But that's what we're doing, right? So there's two ways you can go about this, right? And it doesn't really matter which way, but you do have to commit to one, right? This is something where when we have grayscale models like this, like where it's just a block out, you didn't really add color to your lighting or anything like that, or any materials in the scene, you can go about this two ways. The easiest way is to kind of think about the local color of things and then tint everything one way, right? That's the easiest way. So what I would do, right? Let's assume I was gonna do that, right? You know, I'd probably brighten this up to be a more standard kind of daylight type of scene, because I'll adjust all those values after the fact, right? And what I'll do is let me duplicate this. So I'll show you a quick process on like how I go about that. So just like what I've done before with the vehicle design week, right? You know, you have your kind of daylight scene here. You can colorize it, and then you get your brown or something, right? Like let's say I want the wood of the table, something like this. I'd lasso this out in a very clean, precise way. And then I'll do something like this. Oops. Cool, right? And then you do that, so on and so forth, until you get to the local color of the room as if it was just like ambiently lit, right? That's one way to do it. And to be honest, that's probably the easiest way to do it, but it's not the fastest way to do it, right? And it's not the it's not the fastest way to do it. And I don't really depending on how dark the scene can be, it might not be worth kind of going that far, right? So what I'm gonna do is do the reverse, right? There's two types of colors. There's two different color ideas that you need to be aware of when you're creating a scene like this, right? There's the local color of the materials, right? Wood is brown, you know, like leather is, you know, black or brown or whatever. Metal is gray, right? You know, there's the local inherent color that you understand from the space, right? But then there's the lighting color involved as well. Depending on how strong that lighting is what direction you should go. So for me, this is going to be a pretty moody scene to where everything is generally speaking darker, and it's kind of like, you know, it's just like, it's more atmospheric. Like for example, going back to the reference here, right? You know, her shirt or her jacket is like basically just green, but that looks like a tan suit type of thing, right? You can't, it's hard to tell what color this shirt is, right? Even some of these back here, his shirt here is like pretty green in some areas. So the local color almost gets ignored just because the lighting color is so dominant here, right? The color grading or whatever they decided to do is so much stronger than the local color, right? The local color, like think just materials themselves. And so for me, what I want to do is set up that lighting color first, and then I will inch into what feels like the kind of local color slash thing, right? I'll show you how I go about that in a bit. Just know it's coming. But the reason why that's harder is because when you decide to go from lighting color, right? What we're doing here, where we're kind of like, everything's going to be like toned in like that kind of yellowish, bluish light tone, right? What's going to happen is you're not painting with normal colors anymore. And that can be very difficult to do if you're not versed in painting, right? Because now you're turning a blue countertop into like blue plus brown, which is like, you know, orange, like the orange, you know, from the wood, brownish wood, right? You're combining those colors in your head and you're painting down like some gray color that doesn't even look brown, but then when you put it down, it looks kind of brown, right? I'll show you how I do that. I'll show you the understanding behind it, but just know that way is way harder. So just do local. If you're not used to this, just do local color first and then tint everything down. Use your multiply layers. Get that, you know, inch your way into it. But we've done that before. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this a different way this time, right? Cool. Enough talking. Actually, let me get some water real quick, and we'll jump into this. All right. So the first thing I want to do, right? I have my layers here. I have my original assets. What I'm going to do is actually, wait, where's this? Perspective. I don't need that anymore. Cool. There, what layer is this? It's empty. Empty. Cool. I'm going to group that, duplicate it down because I want to keep those layers, ungroup. Now I'm good to go. Okay, so I have my reference here. I'm going to use my, hold up, I closed it, I'm sorry. Oops. All right. So I have my colors here, right? And it's going to be mostly like this kind of goldish yellow, right? So I'll just start there and then we'll just proceed. So just like usual, right? If you've seen me paint my environments, usually what I do is I start with the sky, right? Start with the clouds, the sky, the sun, and then work my way forward. In this case, it's the same exact thing, right? Except the only difference is the sky, in this case, is just the walls or the farthest back you can go because everything is hinging on those ideas, right? And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab that background color, a background layer, and just start adding color, right? And it sounds simple as hell. Just like that, right? Very simple. Nothing really that crazy going on right now. I'll show you what I do in a second to kind of make this more sophisticated, but for now, we are good to go. Let's boom, something like this. And we just want it to feel kind of like what the reference is doing here, right? There's this kind of goldish light. I'll fix the light sources in a second. We just want to start getting it in the right kind of tone, right? And so let's go like this. Let me darken this down a bit. A little bit of compositing is going to start helping you at this point, just because now it's you want to start getting like the right tones and stuff kind of happening. It's not going to be that much atmosphere just because it's we're in a restaurant. It's not that far away. But I do want to lighten some of these things in the back. Lighter color. That's what I wanted. Cool. Actually, I'm gonna go like reddish back there. It's like warmer. That's cool. All right. So I'm gonna leave that alone, right? I'm just kind of inching my way towards what could possibly be the tones that we're looking for. Let's go something like this. And darken that down a bit. And I'm gonna go more towards yellow because that's what I want. Sick. Okay. Bar. I can go pretty dark. And so the logic here right now is that we have a yellow light, you know, warmish kind of gold light, right? Just that's what we're doing here, right? Maybe it's like tinted yellow, right? And so we have this light kind of shining down. That's going to be our source of the yellow. Same here, same here, same here, same here. So anything outside of that, right, needs to shift away from yellow because it's the lack of yellow that's making that, you know, a shadow essentially, right? Because there's no light hitting that. And so what you want to do is I have my color balance and you can shift it to shadow here. And then you can start introducing other colors into those shadow sides, right? Just a little bit, just to kind of get you started. Highlights, you can add more yellow, like anything that's hitting light is gonna like that on the back side of this guy right here, right? And then I just want to like add some sophistication to this color scheme. This way it feels more natural, right? You're not going to get there on this purely, right? Just because it can't do that, right? Color balance won't go that far, but it just kind of helps you out, you know. It makes your flatter colors feel maybe a little bit more just better as a whole, right? Just a little bit more intriguing. Boom, some of that. Cool. Nothing really crazy happened, right? It just goes from like a monochrome yellow to like a slightly more colorful one, right? The real color comes in when we do this. So I'm gonna duplicate the whole thing, color shift. I'm actually gonna get to the color that I want, right? So in this case, there's this bluish kind of tint happening on the things, right? It's you know, there's like there's this blue light kind of happening in front of the counter, and so what I want to do is create that effect for the outside, right? So let's go here. I'm gonna add that bluish effect, right? Pretty crazy, I know. Boom, something like that. Let's turn off this layer real quick. I'm gonna darken this thing down. Just like we're kind of messing with light here, right? Mask it out, and I'm gonna add gradients back in to kind of get me somewhere kind of close. Okay. Boom, airbrush. Oops. Maybe I'll do the gradient version instead. There it is. Cool. So right now it looks like trash. It's not great, right? It starts, it's kind of, it feels, you know, it feels very like you're just kind of messing around with color gradients and stuff like that, right? But what I'm doing is I'm just setting up my light source, because this is as if the whole set was, you know, like a gray mesh, essentially, right? There's no local color yet. Once you add the local color, things start feeling a lot nicer, right? So I'm gonna keep going for a second. You'll kind of see where I'm going here with that. Boom. Let's go with this. Let's do this again. Shadows again. See, like, doesn't that start looking a lot more sophisticated? All right, cool. And what you can do now, right? Because we have a shadow side here. We have a very clear one right there, right? So you just do that. Oops, what the? Nope, that's why. Gradient's off. Right. So we start having these better kind of gradients, and you know, these darker kind of areas that can be a little bit cooler, right? Maybe that might be a little too cool, right? I'll fix all of it in a second. I'm just trying to get myself in the right zone, right? Boom. Let's do this. Pop. I'm not going to worry too much about all the details right now. I just want to get something where it's like I have a strong light side, and then I have a cool or a warm light side and a cool shadow side, right? You don't need to do every single thing, but it does help to kind of, you know, just get something in there. All right, faking some lights, right? Cool. I'm gonna add a little bit back here. I'm just airbrushing because it doesn't really matter how this light gets on there. You just want to feel that transition, right? It's all gonna make sense in a second. There's a little bit less light towards this front end, right? Just because the light's like kind of further away. Makes sense. Boom. Let's do it like this. There you go, much better, right? So now we have kind of two colors happening here, you know? And so the more I go, the more things I do here, right? The better off this tends to be, right? The more, you know, the various other tones that we start involving, the various other, like, you know, materials and things that we start doing, it starts becoming from what we had as a grayscale scene, right? Into a colored scene, right? This isn't good by any means. So this is literally from what we had. and then now it's here, right? It's still not exiting that I guess grayscaled colorized model yet, right? And the reason for that is because you haven't actually painted anything yet. But you want to set up an identity that way it's like at least kind of close, right? There's some things here that's like, ah, that's kind of working, maybe, maybe not, right? And so what I'm gonna do here is, oh, I don't know if I like red on that one so much. Maybe I'll go bluer. That's greenish. Yeah, I'll do that. Let's go that way. That way our shadows kind of get a little bit of that tone. All right, cool. And we'll paint all this down. We'll do what we need to do. But what I have now is hopefully as if everything was lit gray, like everything's gray. I have a kind of colored-esque version, right? We'll increase stuff in a second. We'll make it look spiffy, right? But it's getting somewhere. So now I'm gonna increase some of these light colors, right? Just to kind of get my tone working a little bit nicer. This way everything kind of feels a little bit like, you know, like it's doing something, you know? Just quick indications is all I really need to help this image just work out a little bit nicer, right? Same here. I'm gonna grab this back wall. No, I'll do that. Actually, I'll do that later. Let me grab this. I'm gonna fix my value ranges just a little bit. Someone in the chat says, I'm always afraid to just go in and paint on top of 3D. I really need to work on that. Yeah, it can be, it's hard. I think something with 3D, right, is, something with 3D is that there's this, because it's kind of finished, right, you don't really want to mess with it, right? You don't really like, it's hard to like want to go in and actually like, I guess mess things up, right? Just because there's so much to it already. It's already like, it already feels complicated, and it's, you're like, well, if I put a brush stroke on, then it's kind of like, you know, you get this weird kind of like in between kind of zone, right? You really want to try and see if you can just cut things out and then start pushing things around, right? So now at this point, I have everything I need, right? In terms of my lighting, it's, you know, obviously it's not good, right? But in a zoomed out version, right, you know, there's things associated with it. I'm gonna add in some blue lights in a second just to make that better, right? But we have one color kind of there, right? The dominant color is feeling roughly the same way. Remember how I said that I was to be shifting it green slightly from what we had, because I wanted that that other reference that we had from this one, right? That's what's happening there. That's why it's not as like goldish green. It's like kind of yellowish, greenish yellow, right? So, with that in mind, let's actually start making this look good. I'm gonna save this out so you can kind of see where it goes from here. Boom. I don't need that one. I'm gonna group that together, duplicate that down, keep going. And if you're ever like worried about missing something, right? Where you're like, if you're having trouble with stuff and you're like, hey, I don't really know how to like, when do I merge things down? When do I do stuff? This and that, right? Just remember, you can always just save out the group and then, you know, keep going, right? Because if I mess up and I delete something, do whatever, I still have the original set right here, right? I still have it. So it's like, you know, you can save it out. Like right now, it's so early. So there's not a lot of layers. So I'm okay saving it in the same file. Eventually, I'll do a V2 if it gets kind of out of hand, right? All right. Check this out. This is where the magic comes in. Not magic, but this is where things kind of come in and looks actually decent, right? So what I'm gonna do is start thinking about the local colors, right? Because just like what I was saying a second ago, I really wasn't worried about that. I was worried mostly about the lights doing the things that they need to do, right? Making sure that the lights and the tones and the hues and stuff were, you know, being represented the way I want to represent them, right? Actually, before I do that, let me do one last thing. That's kind of cool. There you go, dude. All right, that's not bad. I like that. It was getting a little dark back there. And then I'll do the same thing for like these guys a little bit later, right? Should I do it now? Let's do it now. Why do it later when you can just do it now? Lighter color, boom. And like, I'm just, you know, just using gradients, right? Keeping it chill and knowing where I need to focus. This first guy is going to be our focal point. So I'm just kind of keeping it there, right? And we'll fix things. We'll adjust things. But whole point is it's getting more and more sophisticated, right? It's like, at first it was like, that's a grayscale model. And then now it's like, it's a colorized grayscale model. Now it's like, maybe, you know, it's like, it's not good, but it's getting better, right? So next step, you're going to be cutting things out anyway. So what I like to do is just cut things out and colorize them at the same time. So especially because like when I render it, I didn't render out like this part of the table by itself. You know, I just kind of, and I'm ignoring those soy sauce bottle things because I can do that later, right? I'm going to copy this over. And now I want to start messing with values, right? And so I want this to be maybe something that's a little bit of a lighter wood, right? But still not going to be like light, but you know, boom. And then I'm going to introduce the colors that I need out of this. So this is a warmish, like, here, let me show you what my references are. Boom. Why is this on gallery? Oh, not that one. Livestream. 11 reference. Okay, so generally speaking, right, when you go to these types of restaurants, you see a lot of wood, right? So I want to introduce that somehow. Maybe not the darker redwoods like this. I do like these kind of lighter tones, right? So I wanted to kind of go with something more like this, right? There's this kind of darker material. I don't know what mine's gonna be. I don't think I'm going to do stone like this, but there's going to be this lighter wood at the bottom right there, right? And so now we have this yellow countertop, or we have this lighter yellow tan countertop, and then we have this kind of darker material behind it, right? And so yellow plus yellow, right? It's yellow wood plus yellow light. It's going to start going kind of yellow. And you can already see it happening now, right? That already starts looking like wood, right? Obviously right now, we're kind of missing some of the other materials, so just hold on a second, you know, but we'll get there. Let's see. Let's go like this. Boom. I'm going to ignore some of these platform things right here because I'll fix that. I'll fix that later. But for now, I just need this to be like right there. I have the original layer already, right? So I'm not too worried about it. Boom, something like that, something like this. Cool. Layer via copy, right? Everything's happening in its own layer, so I'm not too worried. I'm stacking things in the order that they're supposed to be stacked in, right? The wood countertop, and then there's that stone thing on top. It's not on top, it's like next to, but visually it's on top, right? And now you start bringing in that other material. So now, right, because it was already kind of orangey yellowish, right? When I darkened it down, it amplified that yellow. But I want to do some sort of like granite stone, and that's like a cooler black, you know, gray. So I'm going to introduce more blues into that. But what I'm doing though, something you want to pay attention to, I'm not going to Command U and changing that to blue and then like desat, right? You know, you don't want to do it that way because you're losing the relationship between the light side and the shadow side, right? Because now it's a blue light-ish kind of hitting that top plane, and I don't want that because that's not how color works, right? Because the gray stone, right, is getting hit by a yellow light. So I want to maintain that yellow relationship, but now I just need that base color to be a little less yellow, right? So I'm doing something like that. Maybe introducing some other colors to it. Shadows could be a little bit more blue, right? And so now you see how that top plane right here, and this is the kind of trick that I'm trying to show you here, is that this top plane right there is still in the browns, right? Now in the shadow side, we're going towards green, right? Because what's yellow plus blue, right? If this is a bluish countertop, right? Like a blue gray, right? If it's a bluish countertop, and then you have that kind of yellow light flooding everything, you're going to get it, it's going to move towards green. So that color relationship actually makes more sense. Because if I did it the other way and I just colorized it, if I did something like layer via copy, I'm not done adjusting value, so I'll fix that in a second. But like if I just went like this, right, and darken it down and try to, get it to where I want it, right? That color relationship stands out too much, right? It's not a sophisticated color. It's not a color that works because now the lighting of that material is not being is not playing correctly with the lighting scenario that I'm in, and I'm gonna have to fix that anyway. So now I have to go back in, grab this top layer, right, and then like add yellow to it essentially. And now I have to like go backwards a couple steps, and then you start getting something a little bit closer, which I don't want to do that. So that's why I'm doing things the way I'm doing it here. Does that make? Hopefully that makes sense. I could desaturate that just a little bit so it gets like kind of in the right zone, right? It's getting closer. Cool. We're one material or two materials in, right? I need these chairs to kind of be actually, what color do I want those chairs? I kind of like this darker wood. Maybe that is wood. I don't know. Sorry. Hold up. There you go. Sorry about that. Airplane be airplane. Cool. All right, so I have this wooden this chair here. I'm not really quite sure what color I want it to be. I'm thinking I don't know if I wanted it to be the same color as like the wood, like the countertop here. I guess it could be. Maybe it could be dark. No, I'll leave it alone for now. I'll leave it the kind of same color as that countertop, just because I'll made it the same wood essentially, right? A little bit warmer would be nice though. A little more blue. And so when I'm doing this, just notice how much I'm color balancing versus hue shifting. Hue shifting is like one thing where you can add a couple things to where it's like, it's if it's small things, hue shifting tends to work pretty well. But when we're doing larger things like this, I really try to color balance instead, mainly because it helps maintain that color relationship, right? So now that top plane is a lot nicer versus like, the way it was before. And then we just kind of keep going, right? I'm gonna keep grabbing pieces and keep doing what I'm doing. Boom. Something like that. I like this darker kind of tone for the top. That this stone color or whatever it is, I'm gonna introduce that right now. Oops, layer via copy, pop. Get that value right first. Oopsies, get that shape right first. But if there's any questions, let me know. It's been a longer talking demo day, but hopefully this is helping. Hopefully this makes sense. Where you're kind of like I want to logically work through it first. This way, like when you do it yourself, you kind of understand what I'm doing, right? And then, you can freestyle things after that. It's just getting these big shapes that matter the most, right? Once you get the big shapes, you're done. That's basically it. Let's recopy that.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So when you have a scene like this complicated, how do you control all the detail in it? So when you build a 3D model, you tend to have a lot of stuff in there. So it kind of hard to transfer all the information into 2D and blend all of that stuff. How do you control it?
Yeah, it's hard. I think so. I think something that you want to kind of focus on, right? Something that I like to do is focus where it's important, right? And I'll show you, as we're going through this. Oopsies, am I doing this on the wrong layer? I think I am. Oopsies, I'll grab it. Hold up, let me. I'll grab that. Actually, I'll just switch it. I'll just switch that one with. There you go. There you go. That's much better. So The way you kind of deal with that, right, is like focus on what's important, right? So, for example, why is this empty? There it is. Whenever you're looking at this, right, there's a couple things that are super important. There's a couple things that really aren't that important at all. So, this is the whole purpose of this shot is this right here, right? We're looking at this guy. We want to see him doing the thing, and I want to see his face right there. I'm gonna kind of get into doing all that in a second, but I want to kind of start getting all those pieces kind of working nicely, right? And then there's probably maybe this section I really want to paint up kind of nicely because it's right in front of us, right? And then after that, secondary guy, secondary two guys, and then like a little bit back here. Once you paint all of those sections, not that it doesn't matter, but most of the stuff back here doesn't do anything. It's not really that important, right? And so when you're painting like a 3D scene like this, usually there's only so much time that you have to kind of like do things. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much time to paint, the scene, right? And so what I'll do is just focus on the focal points, get those looking good, right? And then you're set. We'll get into that in the following week, not this coming week, but the next week after that, on like kind of how I proceed with details and stuff. Because right now we're still blocking everything out, but you'll kind of start seeing where I focus my attention and where I just like leave it alone, because a lot of it becomes like not important,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
When I do it, I usually end up with like 200 layers.
Yeah, it can be kind of tough. I think it's something to understand, right? Like layers, yes. There is times where you might want to dial that back, right? Where it's like, if you have too many layers, it can be kind of hard to manage sometimes, right? But just keep doing it that way, right? I always recommend doing a lot of layers, just because you never really know when you need to like adjust things, like. And then after you do that painting, ask yourself, well, did I need that many? Was it important that I had that those layers, right? And then next time you do the painting, don't make as many, right? Make one or two less, right? Group things a little bit tighter, where instead of grouping it by object, for example, what I did here, I'll hide that, with my counter, right? I didn't group it in terms of like the countertop and then the stone and then the platforms on top. You know what I'm saying? Like I just kept them all as one group, right? And then I'm gonna separate them out just so I can change the material real quick. But after that, I'm done. After that, it's just like I'm gonna paint it as one unit because it's already pretty easy at that point. You know what I'm saying? But it takes a second, right? Learn, figure out what works for you, because everyone's a little bit different. Everyone likes certain ways of working. Everybody can manage more layers or less layers, right? So just kind of like figure out what works for you. I know for me, when I first started, it was a lot of like, I didn't really use that many layers. Not that it wasn't like a one layer painting, but it wasn't like 50, it wasn't like it is now. And during production, it kind of hurt a little bit because I would be like I would be trying to do stuff in production, and then it just wouldn't like work, you know what I mean? Just because I didn't have as many layers, or I needed to kind of make adjustments and stuff, Mid-tone shadows.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Sick. Cool. Right. And as the materials start coming in, right, as I start adjusting the pieces and things, it starts looking a lot nicer, right? Everything starts like, wow, okay. The illusion starts coming in, where you do have some, you do have various kind of pieces and things that start looking more like it's not a 3D model anymore, right? Right, compared to like what it looked like, 20 minutes ago, right? If I group this together and you look at it, right, it's like as I'm going through the layers, like obviously clearly 3D model, clearly like, something where something is just like a block out, right? And then, okay, still looks like a model, still colorized though, right? Really not that good looking. And then now I'm paying more attention to the materials, the values, and the individual pieces, right? But I started with the whole and then started working my way down. Start big, work down to small, right? It makes it a lot easier, right? Cool. So let's start getting a lot of these pieces in order. Do I have it here? Yeah, I do have it here. I'm gonna turn off this real quick just so I can see this better. Okay, so I'm gonna start pulling out some of these pieces just to kind of make things a little bit easier on myself, but hopefully, I think the easiest way to do this would be probably a pen tool, but we'll see how this goes. Let's go something like that. Yeah, the pen tool is gonna be a lot easier. So I don't have to keep switching like this. Speaking of layers, it's funny. Something that happens a lot, something that pops up pretty often whenever I'm teaching classes or like doing stuff like it was even like one of the comments in like one of the other YouTube videos, right? It's like why do you need so many layers? I get that question so often because I use a lot of layers, just because why not, right? But I've had assignments where it was like the difference, right? With like some of the assignments that we get as professionals, a lot of it really is like, hey, can we get that like flower vase and like move it over like like an inch, just boom right there, you know what I mean? Like, and you're doing like interiors, you're doing complex things, like they can do it with buildings, they can do it with clouds, with whatever, right? And like, yeah, you could paint that again, right? It's not a big deal. But one of the bigger things to understand is, the more effective your layering skills are, the better, just the better off you're going to be in a production setting. It's never, to be honest, I don't think it ever hurts to have more layers, right? And you never really know what the production is going to ask of you. I think something that happens a lot is that well, I'm never going to go back and like slide that thing around. You know what I mean? Like I never need to, right? But the thing to understand though is it's not about, a lot of times it's not about design, right? Because usually it's like design makes me want to move some things. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, well, if my design's locked in, then why does it matter? Oftentimes it's like budget reasons, there's like weird requests, not weird, but like, requests that like you wouldn't really see coming, right? Because if you work in a, if you've never worked before, right? If you've never like worked as a production artist, there's the requests that will come in. There's requests that will come in and they'll be like, oh, hey, that looks really cool, right? We really like where that's going. Like, it's an amazing design. We can't afford to do that though. They're like, we can't afford to make the set that big. We can't afford to do, whatever, right? And then they're like, can you cut it? Like, you just cut all these pieces out, and then we'll just use that, right? That happens all the time, right? That's like almost a daily occurrence, to be completely honest, right? They're talking about budget, talking about whatever, and if you don't have your layering on point, then it kind of becomes a nightmare to make any adjustments. Like just moving a cloud becomes like I have to repaint the whole thing. That especially like clouds, like they can take forever sometimes because you're like you're trying to find that right juicy cloud shape. You know what I mean? And it can be difficult to get those shapes down. And then it's like painted into the sky, and it's like it's really hard to make those adjustments quickly, right? And so what could be a maybe 5 minute adjustment, right? Turn a layer off, move some things around, literally becomes like an 8-hour day in some instances, right? And that 8-hour day it comes out of your wallet essentially, right? Because in reality, it could have just been, just like a quick 10-second pop in and out, right? And then, oftentimes the client doesn't know how long that took, right? If they ask for big changes, you charge for big changes. But depending how you layered it, right? That's where you really kind of figure out like what why we would do like a ton of layers like that. You know, you really figure out like, oh, okay, that really did save me. Now I can go hang out with my kid. I can go hang out with my cat. I can go hang out with my wife, whoever. You know what I mean? Like you could just go do stuff. But instead you got to repaint all these clouds. You got to repaint this whole crowd or whatever, you know. And it can suck. It's so you do whatever you want. But that's how I'd go about it. I think it's because I cut every object in the scene, which is why I have so many. Yeah, that could be a problem, right? I think something to understand. I'll only cut out like the back scene here. That's gonna be one flat painting, but right, eventually. But whenever I'm like painting, whenever I'm cutting things out, I really only in the front is where I'll cut things out. Things that are like super close in the foreground or like, kind of where our focal point is where I'll cut out the most because I want that precision, right? Like I need that clarity in my shapes, to kind of do stuff. But other than that, it's like you start finding out what you need, what you don't need, Rams in the comments said the lighting's so nice. Thank you. It's still not there yet. We're still working on it, so give it a second. What's up, Michi?
Hey, Kenny.
What's up, dude? Pretty good, man. Just cutting out platforms.
Boy, my favorite part.
How's the business? How's the goods?
All good, all good.
Nice.
I need to have some more time just to go over a couple of the art books I bought, like light books, but
Nice.
good. Getting colder, but just
You're-
need to make time with the holidays. Most likely I will.
Are you in LA, right?
Not right now. I am in St. Louis.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you moved. That's right.
Yeah,
St.
I'm
Louis,
having fun. I'm gonna be
Missouri.
back in December, Canada. How about you? All good back in Japan now?
Yeah. It's been cool. It's getting colder. We're at I think it's at 14 or like 12 degrees earlier. Celsius.
Oh,
Celsius.
how cold does it get where you are?
Huh?
How cold does it get where you are?
I have no idea. We're about to find out this year.
Oh, really?
Tonight it's supposed to be like 9 degrees or something like that. So
It's not that bad. Well, then again, I'm Canadian, so this is not a good point of reference.
Yeah, I'm not gonna complain to a Canadian about cold. So
Yeah, I'm really bad at it. The only thing Canadians are really good at is just one up people about the cold and talk about maple leaves.
Dude, and poutine, bro. You can't. Don't forget.
It's true. We love the poutine. We like to brag about it. But what is the thing you will brag about Japan if you were to just start a conversation with someone?
To brag, dude. Just how nice people are, bro. Just like, as a culture, man. Just like, I think what I enjoy the most, more than anything, is just how friendly people are. In America, dude, it's like you're like 10 seconds away from getting into a fight. Basically everywhere you go. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that bad, but just the culture behind it is so like, everybody is so aggressive. You know what I mean?
I get you this. I mean, they're friendly, but it's also like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like we're friends either,
Yeah, I think like something that happens a lot in LA, you just get so much attitude from like strangers or whatever, and there's so much. I think for me, there's just so much more respect here. Like, I think what's annoying too is that like our public transportation in America is lacking to say the least, and like is it here? It's just like it's just everything just works, right? Like I'm hopping between Kyoto, Osaka, Tokyo, right? Like every other week essentially, right? And I'm just going like, and it's like if you were to drive, it's like 6 or 7 hours away. And you just go, I can go there in the morning and be back by the end of the day, like a normal work day.
Oh,
and
that's nice.
it's just like, it just works. And then the subway system is like clean and nice and stuff. And like, I think in like the States, you know, we have some of these things, some of them, some places, very few, but we have them, and then it just gets like vandalized, and people are like shitting on it. I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like, freaking, like, why? But anyway, that's something else.
It's cool to see the graffiti sometimes, but for the most part, it's just very dirty or profanities around. It's not.
Yeah, I think that's not, like, it's just very dirty. No, I think it's the respect, right? It's the respect that the people here put into their everyday things, just things in general. Especially like so me, I do like kind of vintage shopping, just like antiques and stuff like that. Not like vases or anything, but like old tech or, you know, old things or whatever, right? And like when you go vintage shopping here, everything is so like dude, it's almost brand new feeling. You know, when you look at it and you're like, you're like, what the hell? This is used? And they're like, yeah, that's like 60 years old. You're like, what? How's that possible? But you know, it's incredible. And I think it's that inherent culture behind just the way they kind of operate, right? Just the people here respect these things just that much more, you know?
Yeah, they respect a lot their objects they have too, and it's kind of really cool to just, like I said, see it too when you kind of get something from them. And
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know, it feels nice. It just feels like it was really taking care of a lot of the things around their lives.
Yeah, they care that little bit more. Yeah, no, I agree, man. That's true. Dude.
Looks good.
Yeah, we're going with at this point, right? We're just kind of going material by material, right? And trying to set up that relationship correctly, right? Anything that we feel needs to be like a different value, anything that needs to be, just kind of a different color visually or whatever. We have that set up, and we're hopefully getting to what looks like a scene that looks and feels like it's a real scene color wise, right? Because I think something that happens, not to you specifically, Michi, but like, you know, whenever we're designing places, you know, especially from 3D, you get this tone of like when you go from here grayscale into colorizing it, it has a colorized feel, and it's usually because there's not enough variety in the materials, and it's not relating with the light source correctly, right? That's usually what happens. And so I will oftentimes set up my just overall gradients and things, get that set up, you know, roughly, right? And then adjusting the materials, getting those various nuances involved, and eventually it starts looking like from a kind of colorized yellow whatever into what hopefully looks like a scene that was lit and colored the way it should have been in like a 3D program, right? But we'll get there. What's nice too is that
It's a slow process. That's really nice. Oh,
this part takes about, I would say, for me, like if you know, doing this as a professional, like at work or something, right? This part takes me, I would say, about the day, right? Like I have 3 days for a painting, generally speaking, right? And if I have a 3D model, maybe that took the first day, maybe half a day, right? This took, I don't know, a couple hours to get to, right? And then I spend the rest of that day kind of cutting things out and then layering things and adding materials and stuff like that. And then after that, it's just like applying some texture to like the front couple things and you're done. Dude, it's so easy. It's just like, it does itself. It's crazy. But main reason why it's taking a little bit longer today, or I guess this month, is just because we're going the long way, right? Because this is, for those that are watching, right, and you're like kind of seeing me do this, you can kind of see that like, oh, that's why all I ever do is add the local color for the. I don't like UV unwrap things and apply texture so much because I don't need to, right? Like I don't really need anything past what I'm doing right now, which is just grabbing the colors that I need, the things that I want, and then going from there. So this is mostly for like just demo purposes, showing people like how I go about like doing these things, right? There be a copy. Darken that down, right? Because we want that to be a different material. And the more material you start adding, right, the better it starts becoming. Dude, look at that. Sick, boy. Let's go. Cool. And it's nice too because the more you start cutting out things, like for example, I cut out this front foreground thing really clean, right? I really spent a lot of time cutting that out. And then as I move back, because things are like obscuring things, I don't have to worry so much about like being clean, you know? And the silhouette from the layering process that I did, you know, is pretty clean already, right? Is the dude making sushi? He is. This is an omakase restaurant. Come on, dude. Yeah, man. It's gonna be he's gonna be making like sushi, so his fingers are kind of like that. I just like modeled. I didn't like rig it or anything. I just like modeled it to be a certain way, and then here we are. So pretty chill.
Making the hands black so you know the sushi stands out. That was all planned along, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. That's the artist special, dude. If someone's like, dude, that's so cool, you thought about that? And I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I do. And then you just like, I had no idea. I had no idea that's how someone would take this. I would be in like director reviews or meetings and stuff. I'd do a painting, and they're like, dude, that's so cool. We really like how you did this, or we really like how you did that. And in my mind, I'm like, sure, man. I'm glad you like it. I had no idea that's what you would gravitate towards. But if that's what they saw, that's all that matters. And I had a mentorship this past week, and something that we really like, I don't want to say focus on, but like something that we really like kind of push, or that I really push in my mentorships, right, is whenever I'm doing paintings, doing keyframes and things like that, right, I try to keep it looser, right? Like obviously this is not one of those moments, right, because it's a 3D model, so it only gets cleaner from here. But whenever I'm doing like looser ideations, I keep it loose, because if you keep it loose, you're playing with the imagination of the viewer, right? Like whenever I'm, you know, creating a thumbnail, that's why when you see like a Craig Mullins painting, you see like other people's like these high industry professionals, right? You see their paintings and you're like, oh shit, dude, that's just like a squiggle back there, right? It's because when you zoom out, your brain fills in the rest, right? That's why, for example, when I was talking about doing the render earlier, right, where I was like, just do the focal points and then the backgrounds kind of fill themselves. It's the same idea. Your brain kind of goes in there and just takes over, even though when you're looking at it, you're like, you know, there could be more detail or whatever associated with this thing, right? But because your brain just does it all, it's a lot easier to kind of leave it a little bit looser. And so the looser you leave a painting, the more imagination you allow the audience to input. And so when I'm pitching to directors, pitching to high level artists, right, that they know what they're looking at, I'll purposefully leave things a little bit looser in some areas, because the tighter you get things, the more you're telling them what it's supposed to look like. Especially in the beginning, that's bad, because you're just trying to explore and pull out their vision, right? And the looser you can leave things in that first stage, just so they can look at it and be like, oh, that's really cool. I really like that car back there. And you're like, oh no, that was a character, you know? But it doesn't matter. It's like they just saw it as a car because it's a scribble or whatever. I like that crowd back there. Oh, that's a bunch of trees, you know, or whatever. It's not that bad, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a lot of, you're trying to let the imagination do its thing. Don't get in the way of somebody else's imagination, right? Especially when that person is the one approving what you're doing, right? It's very difficult to kind of get yourself to do that, you know, consistently, because, you know, you want to spell things out sometimes, right? But just know when, right? If you're doing like 3D models and stuff where or the turnarounds and stuff, you don't want to leave things to imagination, because it's, you know, for production, it's for something. But if you're doing if you're doing like stuff for like pitch work, right, that's where like it really comes in handy having somebody else kind of think up the idea for you, you know? It's a very very simple thing to understand, very difficult thing to do in practice.
It is. How do you go about it when you're doing like a quick sketch or doodle to just kind of plan things out and you want to keep that ambiguous? Like, how do you do the scripts?
Yeah, you know, whenever whenever I do stuff, whenever I'm setting up my images, right? Like, or like, you know, trying to, uh, I guess, decide where to stop, right? More often than not, I just paint like where I need to focus, right? It's like whatever the task is. Like, hey, there's this dragon here, and then it's fighting the guy, right? And then there's a bunch of stuff happening around him. The bunch of stuff happening around them, it's just noise, right? So most of the time, you can just kind of fill in with like, you know, looser crowds or whatever, right? Just to kind of make it feel like it's I guess it looks, you know, busy or whatever, right? That's the whole idea. It just needs to look crowded and look whatever. It's a fight, it's a battle. But then the dragon's face, maybe the armor of the knight, that needs to be a little bit tighter. So you kind of leave that because they still need to see their points, and then they fill in the rest of the information. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
So in that way, you control the hard edge and the soft edge.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You control the hard edge, the soft edge. You also control the clarity of the design, right? Like, you know, how well defined these silhouettes are, how interesting, or how much design work goes into some of these things, right? So it does kind of become you know, you're trying to figure out like where that line is, you know. But you get used to it. You start learning how to do that. You start understanding where and how far you can take things, you know. Because you know, oftentimes it really is just like, what can you get away with, right? Whenever I'm painting for my like leads or whatever, I'll kind of paint the main thing and I'll see how they react to the sides. And they say something, cool, paint it a little higher, paint it a little higher, and then eventually you get to the point to where they're like, oh yeah, that looks perfect, you know, and you're like, nice. But even though you know that it's just like, you know, it's just like it's whatever, you know, it's just a bunch of scribbles, it's a bunch of just generic kind of shapes, you know, you're kind of you're trying to tiptoe that line, you know what I'm saying? Oops, I don't know if I like the way this body is going. I think something like I was saying earlier, something that happens a lot is it can be very difficult to paint this way, right? Like going from lighting color into local color, because sometimes you have to simulate things that you might not quite understand. So for example, I have this chef robot thing right now, right? He has a dark TV head, right? Because I want that to kind of fall back in space. And then he has this. I wanted his kind of body to be more white, like a chef coat, essentially, right? And then I'm trying to figure out what that color is because it's like a white coat with like a blue shadow tone side, but then like a yellow light. And I'm having to try to balance that. And sometimes you get to this point to where it's like, is that tan? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's a weird color, and you want to start. Actually, that kind of worked out. Just shifting it a little bit towards yellow. So now it feels whiter. That's weird how that works out. Like it feels tan here, and then it feels like white right there, right? But things like that, you're having it can take a second sometimes to make that feel white. There you go, right? Because now, doesn't that feel white? It feels like a white suit, right? But then you actually color pick that. That's full on yellow, right? And that's like half saturation, almost full, like, you know, full brightness, right? That's straight up yellow on the light side, but then the shadow side here, right? It starts getting warmer, a little more desaturated, and in context, compared to other things, it feels white, right? And that's what we're looking for. Just that little bit of adjustment to kind of get that looking right. But it takes practice. I don't like teaching things this way, but I wanted to show you because this is where you want to go, right? This is how colors actually work. They're There are objects that are influenced by a bunch of different external things, and hue shifting, right? I hue shifted just to get in the right order, but hue shifting it, like if I wanted that to go blue, don't do it through the hue saturation, do it through the color balance, because now you're introducing blue into a yellow object versus converting a yellow object into a blue object. Hopefully that makes sense, because now if you check this out, right, if I wanted his armor to be blue, like let's say like Mega Man or something, his shoulder pad area is straight up blue, right? It's just blue. And that doesn't work because the lighting is yellow. So now you have to grab this light, and you can just do that and just like paint that in to where that feels more yellow, right? But it's a lot more work, and it's not as accurate as you might want / need, right? So cool. Okay, let's keep it running, dude.
It is very interesting. I never noticed that so much on the hue saturation and the color balance difference.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very like, it's especially people that struggle with color, right? It can be very confusing as to like how to go about this. And see how like now, like looking at these 3 elements alone, right? All I really messed with was the table, this table color, which is almost there already when I first started. The kind of stone color that this thing is going to be, it's like gray, like onyx, like darker gray, black or whatever. And then like a white coat, and then some like wood platforms, because this could be the same wood as here, right? And then all of that's being influenced by this yellow warmish light behind them. And now it's like, it feels like an actual color painting. Like now it's like, oh, okay, we're exiting out of that grayscale colorized feel, right? Because this still feels grayscale colorized. Now it's feeling more correct. Now it's feeling accurate to what it's supposed to be. The more objects I do this to, right? The next 2 being these 2 guys back there. The better all of this is going to start feeling, and it comes through pretty quick. It works out pretty nicely. So I'm gonna delete some of this stuff. Boom.
I just have a quick question.
What's up, dude?
So what is your experience? What is your experience on eating out at one of the sushi restaurant? Because here in Vietnam, as a student, the only sushi you get is those from the convenience store, which really super cheap, right? And it does not taste good at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I think it's funny. Okay. Well, I've been to a couple of restaurants like this, not too many, but there's like, it's funny. I don't really like going to them that much. There's something about it. Like, okay, let's like quality bar, right? Like the bottom, right? Which is like gas station, right? Gas or station. It's bad, right? It's the bottom of the barrel. This is as bad as it gets, right? Like 0 out of 10, right? And then you have like a Japanese grocery store. Let's do it here. Grocery store. Restore. Right? It's like a little bit nicer. Especially if it's like a Japanese one, right? That quality jumps up to like a 6 or a 7, right? 6 or a 7 out of 10, right? It's pretty good, generally speaking, right? It's not terrible. I think it's weird because the middle section here, where it's like nice restaurant, like nice, it's not an omakase place, nice restaurant, right? It's just like a place that they do it well, or they make good food. To be honest, it's usually like a 7 out of 10. Like most sushi restaurants I've been to where they do sushi, it's like whatever. It's okay. It might be better. 7.5. It's not that much better than a grocery store, to be frank with you. And then the omakase restaurants, right? They're always way better. And it's like maybe a 9 or a 10 out of 10, right? It's usually like the best you've had, right? But like the gap between here and here, it's not that I don't care. It's just like, it's not that big a deal, right? There is a big difference, absolutely. But it's just like, I think more often than not, I'm like, that was really expensive for something that was like not not a crazy amount better. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Maybe people are gonna hate me for saying that, but I'm just like, yeah, it's whatever. It's mostly, to be honest, mostly about the experience, right? It's about this. You're trying to show this, you're trying to experience a flavor or a way of, you're trying to experience this thing that the chef or whoever is trying to give you. You know what I'm saying? It's not always about the food. The food kind of does something to the experience essentially. And so I think that's cool. I think that's very interesting. But in terms of like just the flavors alone, yeah, I mean, you go to them every once in a while, but I'm never like truly blown away. You know what I mean? Maybe I haven't been to the right one. Who knows? Maybe I'm just trashy, dude. I mean, I like Taco Bell, so screw it.
Everyone like Taco Bell.
Well, not in front of me, a Mexican dude.
It's I don't even count it as Mexican food, but like to say it's not enjoyable. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's funny. Like, I'll do like nice restaurants or whatever every once in a while, right? Like, just you gotta eat well every so often, and I dig that, right? But also, like, every once in a while, just having something like trashy, like pizza rolls, or whatever. Like, I mean, it's nice, you know what I mean? It feels good sometimes, that, like a pack of ramen, stuff like that. Just, it's like, it's weird. It's the whole spectrum, right? You rate it for what it is, not what it's supposed to be, right? I don't rate Taco Bell based off of the fact that is or isn't Mexican inspired food. I just rate it based on the fact that, am I happy while I'm eating this, And I guess that's all we can do, right?
Oh yeah, same. I really do love how weird they make their menus too. They put Doritos and stuff, and I'm like, whoa.
It's funny.
Okay.
Taco Bell's like one of the only places where I'll like, I'll see them doing something, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool, Like, for example, Burger King did the mac and Cheetos. It was like mac and cheese shaped, but like it's like, or it was Cheeto puff shaped, and it was like shaped mac and cheese or whatever. And when you look at that, you're like, are you going out of business? What's going on? But Taco Bell will do something like Doritos Loco Taco. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, let's go try it. But it is what it is.
I mean, they go crazy with those menus in Taco Bell that they can get away with anything nowadays.
Oh yeah, dude. I'll try. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it the honest college try.
Oh, I know. Can't wait to see some of the posters you might make there, like the digital vegetable poster there for like the ramen shops you're making. Well, not ramen, I guess it's just a sushi shop you're making there.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've been catching some of the other week's videos, but this is supposed to be an omakase restaurant, right? But have you ever been, by the way?
No, unfortunately, I haven't been one.
So just like what I was saying a second ago, right? A lot of it really is about the experience, right? It's the personal connection between you and the chef. That's why they're kind of feeding you whatever. Like, it's what they intend on giving you essentially, And so, I mean, sometimes you can pick like the general course, but I don't think I've ever heard of a place where you can like pick anything you want, because that's just a restaurant at that point. But what I'm trying to say is, there's a very personal approach to this type of restaurant, and what I'm trying to do is create an experience that's like the opposite of that, right? Because it's like a commercialized version of that experience, where we have this restaurant where maybe like some big company like Amazon is trying to recreate the omakase experience, but they're like totally missing the point of why they do this type of restaurant. You know what I'm saying? So it's like robots serving you instead of actual people. You can see the back inner workings of things versus like the the omakase restaurant experience is a very catered experience, not just like food wise, but like the whole experience. Just like the second you walk in, you could be in like a busy area like Tokyo or wherever. You walk in, it's quiet. You know, it's like peaceful. It's like, you know, there's an atmosphere to everything. And so for me, I want to create this experience where it's like kind of they're missing the point of that, right? Um, and yeah, just kind of seeing where that goes. A big reason I'm doing this is because I was listening to something. I forgot what it was, but one of the I think it was it Carlin or somebody. Somebody it was a quote from somebody saying that politicians should wear their sponsors on their jackets like NASCAR people. You know, because like it'd be like Exxon, you know, paying this politician to say whatever they need to say, but you don't see that, you know, live. You don't see them actually doing that stuff. And so I wanted to kind of like create that experience where I was like, oh yeah, you know, you have the sushi restaurant. It's supposed to be all whatever, and then all of a sudden you see like Amazon tagged in the back. You see like, you know, whatever just kind of in there. And I just wanted to create like a cool, like almost like dystopian kind of feel to it, you know. We'll see how this goes, but that's the idea. Cool. Look at that. 2 robots in. Now it's starting to feel more and more like an actual like correct space, you know. Yeah, exactly. They turned a cozy place into a Walmart. That's exactly what they're doing. But you know, and then on top of that, like I was just playing with the forums and stuff too, because I was playing with. For those that don't know, for those that may be tuning in later or whatever, this is the forum language is based off of Mega Man Legends. So if you've if you've seen or played that game, you can kind of see where these forums are coming from. And yeah, this is just me doing that. I do want to say, I think something I want to talk about real quick before we go, right? You know, we're in November at this point. This is the last stream of, not this week, but this is the last topic of the year. So we're gonna finish this until like halfway through December or whatever, right? You know, I'm 20 something paintings alone on live streams by themselves, right? I'm 20 something paintings in at this point, right? And something, you know, just pointing out to everybody, right? Like, you know, now that we're here, this whole stream, right? It's not about trying to like make it big as a streamer or do anything like that. It really is just a way for me to get off my ass and produce some work, because I needed at the beginning of this year, I needed to get some more work under me, right? Like some more portfolio pieces and things, just to kind of show a little bit more like personality and interest and whatever, right? Just something that's a little bit better, essentially. And so, you know, whenever I started this, I didn't have any paintings, right? I just started making some. You know, we started with some of the prop stuff that I continued from that camera project with the car, right? And then from there, just, you know, I kept kind of going. We did the color keys, and then I moved, and then we did some other stuff. But the whole point being, we're 11, 12 months into this thing, you know, not even technically a full year of streaming, because I was gone for 2 months. And I have like 22 paintings that I can possibly show off. And the cool part about this all, right, is that some of these paintings have found me work already. You know what I'm saying? Like I had interviews and I had meetings with freelance, had all sorts of things where they were like, hey, we really like this painting you did. You know, can you do some work for us? And it was a painting I did for Livestream, right? 2 paintings that I made during stream, I sold at Lightbox, you know? And it's just like yeah, it takes some time, right? You know, we're a year in. It took a year to get to that point, right? But the thing is, like, you know, I get comments from people all the time. And they're like, oh yeah, I need to do some work. I need to kind of do some more personal work to find work and stuff like that, right? And I'm like, just start making stuff. And I'm not even making stuff like that that's like super serious, right? This is fucking, this is sushi restaurant Mega Man with like a a dystopian kind of feel. You know what I mean? It's nothing serious, but like, just make stuff that makes you excited. Something that like drives you to actually paint, because you never really know what people are going to respond to, you know? And the longer it takes for you to do it, the longer it's going to take you to actually find work, right? For those of you struggling to find work, struggling to create portfolio pieces and things, right? Portfolio pieces doesn't have to be with the intent of sitting down and being like, hey, this is a portfolio piece. It doesn't always work out that way, right? Just because, you know, like it just happens sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You just made a thing and you're like, wow, that actually worked out okay. And then, you know, you gotta go from there. And so just for everybody, like watching and, you know, whatever, participate. It doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be like on this stream. It doesn't have to be for this project, but just do stuff, because at the end of the day, if you're not finding work for where you want to go, not doing the things that you want to do, you know, just start making stuff and people will notice, right? Little things like this, it goes a long way. It really does. Like, I don't know what this painting's going to do for me, right? And I'm not doing it with the intention of this painting doing something for me. But what I am doing is actually creating something and actually making a product happen. And that's hopefully going to translate into something later, right? But I'm doing it based off of my interest, right? I change interest fucking every week. I get tired of the same painting by the end of each month. By the end of each month, I'm like, yeah, thank God that's over. Like, mentally, I don't say this out loud, but I'm like, oh my God, you know, that was a struggle, right? It just took a second, you know? But, you know, you just do it, and hopefully someone notices, you know, but it won't get there if you never do it, right? It is very hard. It's very hard to get off, you know, get off of social media from, like, you know, looking at other people's work and being like, man, that's crazy. I don't know if I can keep up with that, right? But it is something that you have to do as an artist, as a designer, as a creative, especially like during times like right now, right? Just because everything is so difficult to find work in. But you never know what that one painting is going to do for you, you know? So I would highly advise anybody, don't just like, you know, don't always feel like you have to do portfolio pieces every single time, right? I think like with a lot of these, right, it's not that I have the intention of doing portfolio pieces. They just end up being some of my better paintings, just because they're just like a little bit, they're like one of the more latest kind of works that I have. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that one looks good. Let's continue with that, right? And that's really all it ever is, you know? Let's cut that out. Boom. There you go. Turn that light back on. Dope. Check that shit out, man. We're getting somewhere. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, the best work is work. The best work is usually the one I do without a plan. Exactly. You're just doing things for fun. And I think like because we're so tied into like doing, like, I have to do portfolio pieces. I have to do work that's like that actually like gets me somewhere. It has to look like the company that, you know, it's like just paint shit, man. You know, just do stuff. And you can turn a lot of this into production pieces, right? Like let's say for example, I started this just as a normal painting, right? You can just, you know, you can just turn it into a portfolio piece. Now all I have to do is just grab the guys and then do a turnaround of them. I just do a 3/4 shot of the room, design the rest of the room, right? But don't go with the intention of like saying like, this is gonna be the portfolio piece that's gonna get it for me. You know, this is gonna be it. This is the one. It's like, I mean, maybe, you know, but also you don't want to waste all that time planning, right? I think something that happens a lot, I see from students way too often, right? It's like they have the entire story planned out and designed and just, you know, just crazy amount of information thought out onto this thing, right? And that's cool, right? And that's like, you know, I'm glad you're thinking through these things. But it's just like, so where's the paintings at? You know, where's the images? Where's the Where's the designs? You know, it's like, oh, it's, you know, I have it. I spent half a year on this draft of like trying to figure out where all the designs are gonna go. It's like, dude, you're not gonna you won't find work with a Word document. You know what I mean? Like it's difficult. It's not easy to kind of do all this stuff. And so, you know, just get out there, just start painting, and then plan your portfolio around that, right? Be like, I like this project. I'm going to continue with this. I'm going to make sure I'm going to turn this project into something. And that's how you start getting portfolio pieces that actually look interesting and look cool, because they started from a space that actually looked interesting and looked cool, you know? Oops, there it is. That's better. Yeah, that do be better. Cool. Let's see here. Dope. Let's go, dude. And so now, right? I kind of got all the foreground things done. Foreground / midground things. There's some things. The soy sauce bottle, whatever, right? We'll fix that later. We're getting to that point, right? It's coming down to the, okay, everything's working out okay. Let me start actually making some of this stuff. Let me start designing this stuff out a little bit nicer, and we'll kind of, you know, get there, right? And so as I'm kind of working through this piece, you'll start seeing me like kind of start figuring out, you know, how some things are gonna go, how I'm gonna start designing more things. But this is how we go from, you know, a grayscale model, right? And it only took I mean, I'm not done yet, but it's like it was about 2 hours, right? Or an hour and 48 minutes. I mean, 20 minutes of it was me just explaining what the hell I'm gonna do. But, you know, from there, right, from here, right, to here, it was just a quick colorizing and, you know, just adding color balance and things like that. And then now looking at the local values and local colors and stuff, getting those values right, things are starting to feel more like what it's supposed to feel like with the color of the room, while maintaining the color relationship that you need, right? The biggest thing to understand about this entire process is this moment right here, right? Light side, shadow side. Light side is affected by the light in a very strong and perceivable way. The shadow side is a lot cooler. It feels bluer because that bluer light, right? All from like, you can kind of see it right there. It's affecting what that's supposed to be looking like. If you colorize things, just you remember, probably try color balance first and see how that goes. You could do it the opposite way, but you do have to do a little more work. I like doing things this way because your colors tend to be more sophisticated. I would have never picked this color, right? Like, oh, I need this kind of blackish, kind of bluish kind of like material right there, right? I probably would have never came to that conclusion just because I'm not that good at color. You know, I can't just decide that, you know, but I can maintain it and just work through the logic of like, this is a light side being hit by light, shadow side receiving less of that yellow light. It needs to kind of go the opposite way, so on and so forth. And hopefully by the end of it, right, you kind of start seeing, you know, from here zoomed out, hold shift, wait, show all windows. There it is. Right, and I still need to add that kind of stronger blue light in there, right? But, you know, we're getting kind of close, right? And it has that yellowish kind of glow that I was talking about, but also with this kind of greenish kind of hint that we were talking about in here, right? Like I was saying, it's kind of halfway in between these two references here, right? So it's like, you know, a little more. It's like, it's not supposed to be a super warm, inviting warmth. It's supposed to be kind of like, oh, that's a weird color to pick for a sushi restaurant, because they might not understand that, right? And we'll put neons, we'll put some cool blue lights and all that stuff in there later. But we're getting somewhere. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll kind of keep going with this, but yeah, easy peasy, right? Easiest thing we've ever done. And just remember, right? I think something that I really like pointing out is that, like, you know, these ideas that I'm doing, they're not that different from using 3D. Like, for example, if I was using 3D, I would just take that material, apply that darker material to it, and move on. You know what I mean? And just kind of just go. And what I what I did here, right? Just because of the streaming purposes, like I'm assuming that a lot of people don't know how to do that. They can do basic models and they can just go from there. Which I'm just keeping it a basic model, and then I'm proceeding with the stuff that I'm gonna be doing. But it's like I'm coming to the same conclusion, right? It doesn't matter where I start, where I jump off, you know what I mean? If I apply the material in 3D, if I did it in Photoshop, because sometimes you're just going to get a gray model, right, from production. They're going to be like, hey, can you paint over this model? We don't really have time for you to model anything, or whatever. It's like, we just need this painted. And you'd be like, can I get the model so I can apply it? It's like, no, we just need it by the end of day. So you can't, you know what I mean? Like sometimes that happens. And sometimes they're like, oh, it's not ours. It's from the client or whatever. And a lot of these things happen and you have to be able to kind of get your way out of it. And what you need to do, just like what I was explaining with all the other processes that we've done, you want to get to the point to where you're getting yourself back to the point that you're comfortable with. I have a base workflow that I enjoy, that I'm cool with, right? And you've probably seen me, I've probably done that more effectively in some of the other, like the prop design one at the beginning of the year, a couple of the others, right? I'll apply a local color to it and then I'll just paint on top, right? Because the local color plus the lighting of the scene, it gets me like 90% there. But when that doesn't happen, I'm just getting myself back to that same conclusion, just in a different way, right? It's a different path, but leads to the same exit route, right? If you don't want to do this in a way that like you have to start painting this by hand and you're not lassoing anything out, you're not cutting anything out, right? Because what happens more often than not, right, especially with 3D, is that everything's kind of defined for you, right? It's already blocked out, everything looks good, all the model and stuff is there, but now you're kind of like, well, I usually paint all that in. So you just kind of start painting and then you're doing something out of your comfort zone. And that's kind of burned me so many times. Like I've done things where I'll get a 3D model from the client or whatever, and I start painting, but I do it in a way that's not comfortable for me. I'm not like clipping, masking things out. I'm not, alpha locking, whatever. And the product comes out actually legitimately bad. It's just not good. And I've made that mistake like more often than I can count. And it's just like, you have to remember, get back to what's comfortable for you, right? Figure out how to get that file, like layer it out. If you need to just spend time, just cut. Lassoing doesn't take that long. Just do it. And it helps you get to that conclusion a lot quicker. And hopefully, you can make a better product because of it. Cause now we have the precision that we were looking for in a 3D model, but now you have now you have I guess the flexibility of the way you normally paint, right? Cool. And so now, right, it's just like, let's just start doing stuff. We're just kind of gonna start messing with things, start getting stuff in the right kind of like zone, right? It's like you don't have to do much at this point to kind of get those colors working correctly, because now everything kind of works out okay. Now you use your eyes to hopefully get to hopefully something that kind of works out nicely, right? Maybe that needs to be a little bit lighter. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. Oh, and the chat says, have you had any plans for next year's stream? Yeah, it's oh, sorry, I was reading the next. I was making sure that wasn't part of the same comment. I do have some ideas, right? I'll talk about that later. I do have some news to kind of bring up, or some things I want to talk about. So I'll bring that up. Probably next week. Not next week, the week after that. Just so we can kind of talk about it more thoroughly, essentially. But yeah, I do have some things that I'm planning to do, and some just general things to kind of like progress as an artist or as an individual, right? So I do have things. Cool. And so now, like, I want to start breaking away from the model itself, right? Because before, getting to this point was mostly like, okay, just get the model into a workable state, something that's like, kind of kind of what you're thinking, right? So now I want to start improving it, right? There's things where like I'm gonna start, there's gonna be a bit of like light catch on like the top of this chair here, just from that light source being right there, right? Maybe it didn't capture it correctly or whatever. The way the model kind of like does things, right? It doesn't do it the way I want. And so I'm just going to kind of spend some time to kind of make that happen. And something for everyone should probably be aware of, that everyone needs to be aware of. Unless you're really good at 3D, right? Unless you're a strong like lighting artist that really knows how to manipulate lights and how to control a scene and do all those things, right? I would highly suggest never trusting the 3D when it comes to the lighting and just the image as a whole, right? Just make what looks good to you. I think something that happens a lot is that I'll see, especially like in production, they'll be like, not production, but like artists will be like, oh, the 3D had it there, so I'm just gonna do that, right? And it's like, well, the 3D is just a quick block out, and they just put a light in there so you could see shit. They didn't like fully figure everything out, and so you feel like it's limiting. It's limited to whatever you see, right? Use this opportunity to help improve your design, right? Use this opportunity because this is what's gonna happen, right? What's going to happen is, it's just going to be a lot of back and forth between you and the modeling team. Oh, sorry, Michi, did you lose me? Maybe it's my connection. Maybe maybe it's breaking up. No, maybe it's good. I think it's good. Cool, but a lot of times, when they ask a concept artist to do a painting, they're usually looking for like changes. They're usually looking for new ideas to be brought in. So they'll hand you a model that's like pretty thought out, right? It might be something very similar to kind of what I'm doing here, right? Like I've gotten models like this, even better than this, right? Like this grayscale one here. And so what happens is it'll be like, okay, cool. Can we can we just make it good? Just, add some zhuzh, whatever, do the thing. And then I'll just paint it exactly the way it is. And they're like, oh, that's not really what we want. That's just what we gave you, but we want you to, improve the idea more. And so you're like, change the light source, you do the thing. Obviously I designed all this, so I'm not going to do that as much. But when you get models like this, there's a big opportunity to really change and adjust things, right? Because just know that you're trying to inform the next person in line what to do. And so any change you can make to hopefully make this better is usually welcome, right? Obviously, depending on what your job is, what the task is at hand, you're going to want to consult whoever to, do this correctly. But the understanding is don't be afraid to change things up, right? Don't just because the model's doing that, especially like perspective as well. Like, I've heard it so much to where they're like, oh yeah, like I'd be like, oh, your perspective's off, and they're like, oh, but that's the model. I'm like, it doesn't matter, man. Like it looks weird. It looks wrong. I'm not saying that it's like, I'm not saying that because like the like you don't want to break the perspective just because it's like you don't want to stick with something because it's technically right? You want to design it and use it because it looks more accurate, because they'll figure that out in production. They'll make the change or whatever it is that they need to do. But a lot of times I find that we can stick a little too closely to things just because there's a perceived correctness to how things kind of look. You know what I'm saying? Let's see, boom, something like that. Cool. All right, so 1 o'clock, right? Pretty chill day today, right? Overall, right? Something you really want to understand about this process is we are just trying to create a mood and tone that we can kind of be happy with, right? We want to make sure that when we find our color references, right, we're looking for something that kind of hits home. We're trying to design something that makes sense for our scenes, right? I picked references that would feasibly work with kind of what we're looking at, right? And then, the biggest differences between exterior and interiors is that you have the ability just to put lights where you need them, right? I want that head to pop off a bit. I want this scene to be backlit. I want their backs to be kind of glowing a little bit. For one, to separate them from the background, right? But two, to kind of create this shadow on their face, right? They're all looking down so that you get this nice kind of shadow work. And then the screen from the TV is going to be lit, and that's where you're going to see the actual real chef like webcamming in, essentially, right? So all that's going to be happening in the upcoming week, right? But just kind of understanding like the logic behind exteriors. We're usually forced to just sticking with like the logic of the sun, so you kind of have you have some restraints there, right? With interiors and exteriors, just remember you have complete freedom to change whatever you want to change. If I want to put a light back there, I'll put it there. If I want to add a light shape behind his darker arm, right, I'll do that. And just kind of play with it and have fun with it. And just remember, all you're trying to do is do dark over light, right? Dark over light, and then light over dark, right? You're trying to make things pop off where you need it. You can do that with light shapes. You can do that with light shapes like this. You can do that with lighter values like this. You can do that with material changes like these, right? Whatever it is you want to do, you have more freedom in an interior, right? Generally speaking, once you start learning how to do it, it does get a little bit nicer, and you can kind of like play with that a bit more. It does take a second to kind of figure those things out. I know for me, for the first couple of years of doing interiors, it always felt so difficult to do. But once you kind of understand how to break things down and what you need to be looking at, right? I'm supposed to be looking at this guy. He's going to have a piece of sushi right there, kind of ready. I might have some like a placemat. I did have a placemat and everything right there, but I need to like make it value-wise pop off. I have all those things there, and now I just need to make sure they really like pop off, right? Really design and show off the thing that you intend for us to look at, right? So it takes a bit of practice. It takes a bit of understanding where that freedom comes from. But once you do, oh, dude, it's so much nicer, right? I really like doing interiors and nighttime scenes because of that freedom. So yeah, just have fun with it. Design what you need to design, and just make it look cool. Cool. That's all I got for today. So just a heads up. For next week, right? So it's Thanksgiving week next week, like Wednesday, Thursday, right? So we're not doing a stream next week. Go hang out with your families, go do your thing. Do non-art stuff, right? Just get away from the desk. Don't do this, because it's not that big a deal, right? So we're gonna take a break next week, and then we're gonna get back into it December, right? We're gonna continue this. We're going to be doing rendering and materials and stuff next, and then finishing up with like a kind of final presentation day. So 2 more streams left of the year, not next week, the week after. I'll make more announcements of that in the Discord if you're part of it. If you're not, please join my Discord, to kind of get like linked in and tagged and stuff like that. And you can, kind of know when things are happening. And last thing I want to say again too, just want to repeat this from last week. So we dropped a book online, right? From the people in that digital vegetable group. So if you're not part of the Discord, right, these people are there too. And so you can check out this book there. It's an ebook. And so the idea is we're just kind of trying to show what world building or what design is for each individual artist. If you're a newer artist, I would highly recommend this book, not because I'm selling it, just because the information in it is good. There is 17 different artists in there, each with their own take, their own process, their own design ideas, own life experiences. And they put a lot of hard work into it. And so it's a cool book. I would highly recommend it. But yeah, check that out. It's on my website. Go to the shop. You can go to my bio and my Instagram. You'll find the link there as well. So, but cool. That's all I got for you guys this week. If there's any questions, just hit me up, and then I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. So yeah, see you.